came across Sadie Dingfelder when she wrote a wonderful article in the Washington Post's erstwhile magazine section. That wasn't the name of the magazine section, but it no longer exists. And it was about her condition, which is face blindness. And then we had her on the show. It was a great conversation. And then she wrote a whole book on face blindness called Do I Know You? A Face Blind Reporter's Journey into the Science of Sight, Memory, and Imagination. And she was on the show for that. And it blew me away as a book. It was one of those books that examined every implication and rivulet, and she was thorough in her reporting and somehow became friends with Steve Wozniak as a result of it. And so with that in mind, and then I went to a book event with her, and she just impressed me more and more and more, and it's fun to talk to and knows what she's talking about, is an excellent science reporter. So with that all in mind, the gist hereby reconvenes the question on everyone's mind now more than ever: is that bullshit? With Sadie Dingfelder. Sadie, welcome. I guess I could say congratulations. Could be a white elephant of a prize, but thank you for joining me in this pursuit.
I'm thrilled to be here. It feels like a prize to me.
So today, we are going to ask one of the timeless questions that scientists are always asking themselves and each other, and not just scientists, pet owners. When I die, my cat will eat me, but my dog will not. Is that bullshit? Are you ready to play?
Yes, very excited.
Before we answer the question, let's set the scene. I have just fallen down, and I have a cat who's staring at my face and licking his chops. Now, do you have any cats or dogs?
I do. I have 2 cats.
What are their names?
Fuzz and Turtle.
Okay, so I have 2 cats, too. And neither of them could be named Fuzz because they have no fuzz, because they are hairless cats. Have you met my cats?
I have met your cats. They look really weird.
You know, they would say the same thing about Turtle. Putting aside the names, what kind of cats are Turtle and Fuzz?
American short hair.
Yeah. So I got the hairless kind, and I've always thought that they think very highly of me. But to be clear, I've always been alive in their presence. Mm-hmm. So let's dive down and let's try to figure out this question. Do you want to take the cat part first or the dog part first?
I'll take the cats first because
okay.
So first I need to say I've never done research on forensic science before, and those papers are disgusting. I do not recommend looking at them. They have full color photos of everything.
Of perhaps people being eaten, or see, I'm gonna guess that you're tipping your hand what the answer is, because if it's full color photos of people being not eaten, it wouldn't be as disgusting.
A lot of dead people, and yes, they all have been eaten, and but not well. Okay, so at first I thought I was just gonna have to count up every single report of a cat or a dog eating a person. But luckily, I found
put it into the Google News alert and see what it spits out. Yeah.
Yeah. I started working on the spreadsheet, but thank goodness I found this 2024 meta-analysis.
Nice.
And they were only able to find 3 cases of cats eating owners in in all of forensic literature.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, only 3 cases, and in 2 of the cases, it was a clouder of cats, which is a new vocabulary word for me. Do you know what a clouder is?
It's like what happens after someone dies and cats put on their bibs and pick up forks and knives. Is it like a murder of crows? Is it the collective name for cats?
For 10 or more cats as a clouder.
Oh, really? So it's like a minion of cats. I didn't know there was a minimum number to be a clouder.
Yes, and
do you know what 2 to 4 is and what 4 to 8 is? Do they all have designations?
Colony, I think, is 4 to 8, and 2 to 4 is just a normal person's house.
Okay.
So cats. So in 2 of the 3 cases of cats eating people after they died, they were clouders of cats. So it was like almost like a cat colony situation.
Yeah.
Cat hoarders,
yeah.
And they're trapped in the house with the person, so they kind of had no choice. And then in one of the cases, it was 2 cats who were trapped in an apartment with a man who had died for months and months. So they were fairly extreme situations where I think I would have eaten that guy if I was trapped in that.
I knew that guy, and he seemed delicious. Yeah. Okay, so the forensics, and in the research you came across, that all of those photos were of these 3 people, the only 3 people we know to be eaten by cats?
Oh no. Okay. Oh no.
Take me there.
Because I found another meta-analysis. This one's a bit older, so you can be pretty sure this number is actually higher. There are 63 cases in a 2015 meta-analysis of dogs eating their owners.
Oh. So how does a 2024 meta-analysis not pick up the 2015 meta-analysis? Or one was looking at dogs, one was looking at cats. Is that the answer?
No, one of them looked at cats and dogs, but they didn't have a count for the dogs for some reason.
That seems like very poor science. So dogs eat their owners too?
Yeah, well, okay, so this is the crazy information about the dogs. They eat the owners, but they are not hungry. They're not eating you because they're hungry. And here's a classic example. A man shot himself and died in a room with his German Shepherd. German Shepherds, by the way, figure very prominently in many of these stories. I found at least three cases of German Shepherds fully decapitating their owners after death.
Interesting.
But anyway, in this one typical case, a man killed himself. He was in the room with his German Shepherd, and it was 45 minutes later, the police arrived, and the dog had already eaten a lot of this man's
45
face.
minutes?
45 minutes, his face and his hands, and there was a dog food bowl of full dog food on the floor.
This is a bad German Shepherd, or according to certain breeders of German Shepherds, a good German Shepherd. Yeah.
Well, in the van on the way to wherever they were taking this dog, he barfed up, they said 400 grams of commingled dog food and human remains.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So he was eating both,
Closed
like appetizer.
casket for that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but they aren't hungry. So what they're doing, they think, this is that the dogs, they called it escalating patterns of trying to revive their owners. So they're trying to get your attention, and they start by like maybe
the poor dogs. They don't know what to do. They're not trained as emergency technicians. They just escalate and escalate it to the natural step, eating the guy's face. That's all they know.
Well, yeah. So the way it's described is like they'll nudge you. They'll try nudging you. They'll try nipping at you. Maybe they'll take a bigger nip, and they get some meat in their mouth, and they're like, "Yum." You know.
That's right. The dog memory is like gotta wake up the owner. Gotta wake up the. Ooh, that tastes good, and then it's all out the window. Yeah.
Yeah. That seems to be really what happens.
Oh wow.
And another interesting thing, by the way, is that there's one reported case of hamsters eating their owner.
Really? How long would that take?
A long time. It was just a single hamster, but it did pretty good damage.
Really?
Yeah. It was a domestic golden hamster. I guess they're pretty big.
Uh-huh.
And then another interesting thing is that is evidence that the dogs are not eating you because they're hungry, is that when dogs scavenge corpses, they eat a completely different way than when they are, eating their owners after their death.
See, this is interesting and surprising to me because I had thought and assumed that it all depended on the putrefaction of the body. Mm-hmm. So that there's all these stories about loyal dogs staying with their owners. In fact, I'll read you one that seemed to want to say it was, I read a story about an owner who died and the dog stayed by the body so long that the dog starved to death. Isn't that a wonderful, inspiring story of dog loyalty? And I think a cat might look at that and say, no, that's dog stupidity. But from what I had assumed, once the owner is dead, and like within 24 hours, this is shocking to me. If the owner is dead, it still scans and maybe smells. Dogs are very smell-oriented, smells like the owner. Mm-hmm. And so for a while, it'll just be, why isn't the owner waking up or licking the face? And then after a while, after the body begins to rot, it seems like a different thing to a dog, that thing perhaps being food. I'd assumed something like that would go on. But the nipping, eating, I guess... continuum, a quick continuum, pretty shocking to me.
It's very fast. Dogs start eating their owners really fast if they're going to do it. But scavenging dogs like go for sort of the abdominal area and organ meat. And whereas dogs in these owner death situations actually eat your fingers, your toes, and your face. places where they would normally lick or nip or try to get your attention.
So, from what you have found in the literature, it is documented that many dogs have eaten their owners,
Yeah.
but few cats.
Yes. And let me tell you, this makes some sense to me as a cat owner because cats are picky eaters. And they, and so scavenging cats, there's not many examples of cats scavenging cadavers. Because, there's these weird cadaver labs that like put human cadavers in a field to watch what happens.
Not weird, perfectly normal cadaver labs, just adhering to the best practices of cadaver labs. Yeah,
right. And they do it to watch what happens, and some of the things that happen are scavenging cats and dogs, feral cats and dogs, and the dogs again they'll indiscriminately eat any carcass. But this one report I found had two cats that independently of one another were eating the same carcass, and they very, very delicately licked a single layer of subcutaneous fat, whereas the dogs just kind of go for it.
Interesting. Well, it is true. I mean, I don't know if it's true with your cats, but you could always leave out a bowl of food for the cats and they'll pick at it when hungry. And if you do that with a dog, it's all gone and they'll throw up.
Right.
Yeah. Why do you think cultural? Well, first of all, I did a little, I don't even know if I did pre-research. I just had an idea in my head. And it did seem to me that the idea was, and this is how we framed the question, that your cat will eat you. People seem to believe that that is true, but cat ate his face and, oh, you love your cat, but when you're dead, he'll eat you. But the dog won't. So first of all, I'll ask you this. Did you think that that was the state of play in most people's minds? And did you read a lot of thoroughly vetted research that asserted that that was the case?
Yes, I found an article in Psychology Today, and I emailed the author, and I was like, given all this evidence, why did you write this? And I have not heard back. But that is the prevailing belief in our culture, is that your cats will eat you and your dogs will guard your body. But and some dogs might sit there with your body forever, and some of them might sit with forever and start nibbling.
Yeah.
But I think the reason for this is that dogs have very animated faces. They have a lot more facial muscles than cats do because they are social species and they evolved to not only communicate with each other but with humans. Whereas cats are evolved from a solitary species, and they've only sort of recently been able to live alongside humans and other cats. And so they don't have a sophisticated signaling thing. So they just look very blank faced.
Yes.
And to us, that reads as vaguely psychopathic, I think.
Oh, interesting. See, it all comes back to the faces. Had you done research on animal faces for your book?
Yes, I have done so much research on animal faces. And animal faces, anyway, they're very different from human faces. Like, we have these very mobile, furry eyebrows. We have the whites of our eyes allow us to see what direction we're looking, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's basically a story we tell ourselves about dogs. Our impression of dogs is based on our mental processing as opposed to anything actual about the dogs.
Yes, and a classic example of this is dogs' eyebrows and how they kind of knit them together when when you're angry at them.
Yeah.
And people often see this as a sign of guilt and remorse. But there's no evidence that dogs feel any guilt or remorse. In fact, if you just yell at a dog, they show guilt and remorse, even if they did nothing wrong.
Yeah, this is, that's what we want from anyone we yell at, a little contrition.
Yes.
It is so funny. George Carlin has that exact joke,
Really?
which is dogs seem so much more human because they got eyebrows where cats just have this shit up here.
Totally.
But it's great that I think all of George Carlin's bits should be vetted by science and, and longitudinal studies. So the other question I have with the dogs and the cats is, well, I don't know if you've done any research into which species is more delicious, because this came up, and some would argue a recent political election hinged on the assertion of eating the dogs and eating the cats. Any meta-analysis of that?
No, but I'm not aware of any cultures that eat cats, even big cats. And a lot of cultures eat canids. Not like, so I think that they must be delicious. I think that I would assume that canids are more delicious than cats, but neither, I imagine, are as delicious as pigs.
So now is the time we render a verdict, and here's our question. My cat will eat me when I'm dead. My dog won't. Is that bullshit?
It is definitely bullshit. Your dog will eat you and your cat will not.
Sadie Dingfelder is the author of Do I Know You? A Faceblind Reporter's Journey into the Science of Sight, Memory, and Imagination. And now we could also add cat and dog faces. She is our guide to answering the age-old question, is that bullshit? Thank you, Sadie.
You're so welcome.